Good morning, everyone. My name is Bonnie Schroeder. I'm the Director of Age Friendly Ottawa with the Council on Aging. I am welcoming you to our Snowstorm 2025, talking about promoting safe and accessible winter walking for all ages. Just to share a little bit about ourselves, the Council on Aging has a mission to advance the well-being of Ottawa's older adults. As part of our age-friendly city initiative, we have a vision for respected, informed, and engaged older adults living in an age-friendly Ottawa. Just a little bit about what we do. We bring people together. So convening like forums like these events, we advocate with and for older adults. We deliver educational events and activities, and we keep people informed about issues. Before we get officially started, would like to acknowledge that we are on the Algonquin land, unceded and unsurrendered territory in Ottawa. I appreciate this land acknowledgement in honoring older Indigenous people and elders that share traditional knowledge and culture for the benefits of all. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping. We are asking for you to turn your audio or video off during the presentation. You are recorded. If you want to keep the video on, just to let you know, we are recording this. It will be sent to you after and will be posted on YouTube. The chat feature is there for you to ask questions of our guest speakers, and I'm providing the tech support. So if you are unfamiliar with Zoom, just to show you, go on the screen along the bottom, it will pop up and a banner will pop up. Click on the chat and you can ask your questions there. So without further ado, we're going to get started with the official program. So thank you very much for joining us for the Snowstorming 2025. And our first speaker is Councillor Tim Tierney, Chair of the Transportation Committee. Over to you, Tim.
Great. Thank you very much, Bonnie, and thank you to the Council on Aging. As we know, there is we are really focused at the city specifically on obviously pedestrian safety. I think that's one of the things, especially today of all days. It is one of the colder days out there. It's one of the more slippy days. So I'm always warning people to be safe. That being said, myself and Councillor Alan Hubley have been talking with Bonnie and the rest of the gang. We want to be really have a closer relationship with the Council on Aging. We resolved many issues when it came to transit collectively together. And I think we have a great opportunity from the winter quality maintenance perspective to ensure that pedestrian safety, one of the bigger factors that help seniors in our communities, is a part of that discussion. So I really appreciate, I'm here to listen. I'm here to gather information and continue the great work over the next few months as we develop this program along with our city officials. And I'm always there to listen. So thank you again, Bonnie, and to the entire gang at the Council on Aging.
So thank you, Tim. And just give me one more second here. For some reason, it decided it was, there we go. So today's presentation will start with Mary Holler, co-chair of our Pedestrian Safety and Walkability Subcommittee. Sandra Stank is also with us today. So the two co-chairs have been hard at work putting this together. And we are delighted to have the two city departments, the road operations with Brian Denny's, as well as three coordinators from 311. And we'll be presenting on those three presentations, and then we will open up for questions. So over to you, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you very much for everyone who's attending today. So my job today is just to give you a bit of an overview of what the Age-Friendly Pedestrian Safety and Walkability Subcommittee has been doing over the last few winters, and the focus, how it's changing and what we're planning to do for this winter. So the purpose of this committee is many things Bonnie's already mentioned: to raise awareness and promote improvements in walkability, pedestrian safety, and accessibility in all seasons for all ages, especially for those vulnerable people, and especially in those challenging conditions for pedestrians, which includes winter. So people may be aware, we have run a snow mole campaign over the last 7 years. The snow mole was identified, was the winter mole who would burrow under the snow for safety, as well as mole agents who work undercover to collect important evidence. So we had snow mole leaders who would do walks. These are all volunteers in the city, and they would do a walking audit. And then with the audit information, we would collect a lot of valuable information about how the city is doing with the snow clearance. And then we would present all that information and report to the city. So as a committee, we develop checklists and questionnaires and other tools to capture this information about walking safety. And then we would do walking audits. Our champions throughout the city would do individual walking audits, and then we'd also organize some group audits with the volunteers. And then we put that information together and make recommendations to the city, with really the ultimate goal was to pressure the city to update the winter maintenance quality standards, which are from 2002, I think. Or 2003, it's been quite a while. So we are hoping to improve the standards so we can improve the walkability in the city. So what I just mentioned, why we're doing it, because these winter maintenance quality standards are outdated. The cities, like the weather, the climate has changed over the years. There's a lot more, there's different problems that are evolving with winter, with the weather being less cold, except for today or this week. So the pressure was to do these audits and to keep lobbying for review of the winter maintenance quality standards. So this is winter wonderland, depending on your point of view. So you're looking at the 3 different point of views for this, this man wondering if his car is going to start, and a day like today might be a problem. The older person who's walking, wondering if they're going to slip, and that's been a problem with the mild weather changing to cold weather. That's just happened again over this weekend. And then, of course, will there be school, which is maybe a positive. The positives of winter if school is canceled. So this committee, with the snow mole program over the last 7-8 years, has seen a lot of accomplishments. There have been changes in the snow plow routes and directions. So your neighbor, if you're getting plowed, you're not always the first or the last in the list. So it's distributed a little bit better. There's been a lot of educational material that's been developed for snowplow operators so that they understand the complete route that needs to be done so that people can get from A to B without snowplow drifts that are created in the middle of people's routes. The stairs on the floor on the Corktown bridges have been started to be maintained, and they will be maintained again this year. Last year, the year before, was a pilot project. And then last year was some collaboration with the Ottawa West Community Centre and pressure from our committee and the Council on Aging as well. The city promised to clear all 14 para bus stops for this winter, so all the official stops. This was the problem last year. You can see in the picture, this is a side street beside the Ottawa West, and that's the para stop. So the bus couldn't stop close enough to the sidewalk. These disabled adults would have to get out and climb over with their caregiver. And so what the buses were doing was we were going around the corner to Wellington, where it was cleared because that's a major route, but then they were blocking traffic. So anyways, we are happy to be part of that resolution. And then as well, many cities, different cities in Canada have contacted us and they're starting their own snowmobile programs. So we're pretty happy with that. Okay, and so this year we're doing a bit of a change because we haven't seen the result that we wanted with this last budget with any additions, anything formal with their winter maintenance quality standards. We've decided to take a little bit of a different deviation. And so we're planning 3 winter walking community audits, which are involving the counselors in the different neighborhoods and like different neighborhood organizations. So these are the 3, everyone will get this at the end. So they can see that there's going to be 3 walking dates. Everyone who's on this call is welcome to join us, and anybody else who knows about it. So we're starting at 10:30. You can see the start at the very bottom boxes, and we're going to do about a 30-minute walk. And then as a group, we're going to do a 3-1-1 review of what the conditions were like. And we're going to use some of the main principles from the snowmall audits, but we're not using the actual snowmall audit. So we're looking at walkability. Was it cleared? Was it icy? Did you have to deviate from your route because of inaccessibility? Did you have to step over snowbanks? Was there good visibility because of snowbanks and so on? So what can you do? The individual, you can join us for some of these snowstorming winter walks, because the more people, the stronger our voice. You can talk with your neighbors to encourage awareness. If one of the things we had advocated is if you see something, say something. It's one thing, we're really good at complaining to our neighbors and complaining at the bus stop about the weather, how cold it is, the poor snow clearance. But if you don't actually contact and tell anybody about it, it's not going to change. So we need to write your city councillor, copy the mayor, do a 3-1-1 audit, take pictures. Pictures are really valuable. And then call your councillor, because over the course of our work, we have spoken to different councillors, and some of them have told us that there's no issues in their neighborhood because nobody's telling them that there are any issues. And I think that's probably not the truth on the ground. So we need to be better with our communication. And as well, this is just a tip sheet that the Council on Aging produced a couple of years ago, tips for winter walking. So you can download it from the website. And these are just a couple things for people who are doing winter walking. I mean, plan ahead, look at the weather. Like today's a really cold day. So if you're going to go out, make sure that you're wearing the right clothing, cover your face. If it's icy at all, there are all kinds of different ice grippers that you can wear, like bigger ones, smaller ones that are available at Canadian Tire, Lee Valley, and lots of sports stores. So those are just things to make the walk that much safer so you can get out. There is a website called ratemytreads.com, which is part of I think it's the University Health Network in Toronto, and they are an independent company that does the rating for winter boots and spikes. So they'll let you know which boots are the best on wet ice and dry ice. And most of the products are available in Canada. So it's a really good website. If you're needing to buy a new pair of boots, you might as well buy a pair of boots that have been officially rated. And then a few other things to make winter walking safe. If there's any worry about your balance or the conditions that might challenge your balance, think about using walking poles, ski poles to give you that extra bit of support. Look for good traction. Sometimes you might have to detour around the drips that come from the type of sidewalks that we have that are angled. If you're having to deal with something that's super slippery, then I suggest you do the penguin shuffle. So you think about how a penguin walks with their feet slightly apart, their toes pointed out a little bit, and they switch their weight from side to side rather than from heel to toe going forward and back. So it creates a lot more contact with your foot on the ground, and it'll help you with your walking. You want to keep your knees bent, your hips bent a little bit, arms out to the side. So this can help you just get through some of those little icier spots along your route. And then as well, along the route, you might find the yellow boxes where there's extra salt or sand. So if you need to use it, you should use it. So now we're going to see a little video about Walk Like a Penguin, I think. I hope. So this is from, I think it's Alberta. So the penguin, I think, says it all. So every time you come upon ice, think about our little penguin. And again, if you see something, say something. If you see a hazard, if you have a phone, take a picture and then post it through 311 later, and we'll find out more about that later in the presentation today. So just don't walk by, take a picture. And I think that's everything for today for me. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Mary. We're going to hand it over to Bryden Denny's, our illustrious road operations manager. He's been on our committee forever. Even in the middle of winter storms, he comes and advises us, and our relationship with city staff is so important. But over to you, Bryden, to share all that is winter maintenance in Ottawa.
Bonnie, thank you so much. It's funny you say that. I was looking at when Mary had the screen up for 2016 for the first snow moles. I was like, wow, it's been that long since we started that. So I just think it's a testament to the amazing organization with COA and the people involved that allow these messages to be pushed and shared to the general community. So I just want to say thank you, Bonnie, for having me as part of the team here, and I look forward to every meeting that we have. So thank you very much. Now Bonnie gave me control here to do something, so I'm going to try and share my screen and see how this goes. Just 1 second. Okay, Bonnie, how's that look? That's okay? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, looks great.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Mary. Again, just good morning, everyone. My name is Bryden Dennis. I'm the area manager for special operations at the City of Ottawa. I have had the pleasure of working at the city for coming up 25 years now. So this is what we're talking about here today is near and dear to my heart, is our operations here. So we'll just skip to the next slide. So just quickly, just some overview of what we have to work with at the City of Ottawa. The city is a very large municipality with urban center, suburban areas, and a large rural portion. We're about 80% rural for the whole City of Ottawa, so that the land mass is staggering. And that kind of comes into play when we look at trying to maintain over 13,000 lane kilometers of roadway. We're approaching actually close to 3,000 kilometers of sidewalks and pathways that are winter maintained. Our complement of resources is over 500 staff and contractors that we can deploy, and with a staggering amount of equipment that we can put out, almost 600 pieces of equipment. And one of our main tools in our current climate that we have to deal with slippery or icy conditions is salt. It is what we use for de-icing materials. And it is very effective, but there's a lot of ground to cover, so we do have a lot of resources that are deployed for each weather event. This is kind of the crux of how we do our work. So our maintenance quality standards, I know Mary talked about it, we're still going through a review process, but this is basically a timeline-based system, plus the conditions that are happening. So when we look at our roads and our sidewalks, they're broken up into classifications. So roads are broken up into class 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 classifications. A class 1 roadway would be a dedicated transit way, and our Highway 174. And then you go through the classifications for arterial roads, collector roads, all the way down to class 5 residentials. So you can see on the chart here, when we start looking at our roadways, we typically are deploying as accumulation begins for our priority road network. We're also moving into priority sidewalks, again, broken by classification. 1 being Byward Market area, Parliamentary Precinct, really those high density areas, as well as tourist areas, down to class 2 sidewalks, which are priorities, and class 3 are residentials. I will say over the last 6 years, we have steadily been increasing our work capacity for our sidewalks. As Chair Tierney pointed out, we do recognize sidewalks are extremely important to all users that do have to get out and about. So what we've really had a focus on is our standards are still the same as they were in 2003. We're working through those, but we have been steadily adding resources to our sidewalk maintenance programs. So when we start looking at certain areas that may have had, say, particularly daytime only operations in suburban or rural areas, we're able to do that work at nighttime now with additional resources. We do try and deploy our sidewalk resources across the board on particularly our class 2 and 3s closer to the start of the snow events, so we can try and stay on top of it and allow us to have resources deployed during the events on those storms versus waiting for our trigger points of, say, 2.5 or 5 centimeters of snow. So really trying to stay more on top of that. We also move into, say, residential streets. We are aware how important residential streets play a role in not only vehicular traffic, but residents moving. Some residential streets don't have sidewalks, so people are using those residential streets for walking as well. So we're doing, I know our standard hasn't changed, but we are servicing those, looking at them potentially as access points for people walking, not only driving. So we are deploying resources more rapidly on those and trying to minimize that snowpack condition on those residential streets to promote a bit more safer walking for them. And then at the end of our storm events, once that storm stops, whether it's freezing rain, snow, that's where we really start putting our focus on the cleanup. And we're moving into items like bus stops, clearing corners, activated signals, pedestrian priority crosswalks. So it's kind of that bridge of moving from dealing with the storm to cleaning up the storm. So we have a lot of resources that are tied to that. And I will say we have the full capability operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, day shift, night shift. We will work until stuff is cleaned up and is safe for all users. One new thing that we're starting to see a bit more frequently is kind of the different swings in our weather that we get. We can go from cold to warm, a bit more extreme events that may require us to let the public know that we have a significant weather event that we have to declare. This would be in a case where we know we're going to have a challenge meeting our maintenance quality standards purely based on the storm event, that it's snowing too heavy, it's a very prolonged freezing rain event. We want residents to know by declaring a significant weather event that there are going to be challenges meeting the standards. So to share that information to make everybody full aware that's happening. So in these cases, we always would be, our resources will be out, but we are looking for support from the members of the public to help us ensure that we can get through our beats efficiently. So parking cars elsewhere, just trying to limit your trips out. It really helps us get through it. Again, when we declare this, we're not waiting for the storm to end. We are working through it. Again, it's just going to take longer, but everything will be out. And then when we lift that significant weather event, that's when we're going to start working to achieve those maintenance quality standards. If we do declare a significant weather event, or we are in an ongoing weather event, we would ask residents to refrain from calling 311 to say, hey, why is my street not plowed in this case? And the only reason we say that is our resources are all out. We are working through it. But when we declare this, there may not be the resources we have available to start investigating service requests during the storm event. That would happen after. So that's where, and I know Michael and his team from Service Ottawa will talk a bit more about that as well. So just a good graphic here of what a residential road or a sidewalk would look like that has a snowpack surface standard. So this is where we're trying to maintain snowpack on the roadway or the sidewalk, allowing a smooth surface. Anytime where we have more buildup or a snowpack layer that is starting to become rough or rutted, we would be being a bit more aggressive with our resources. And this comes back to the additional resources for our sidewalks, where we're going to try and minimize that snowpack, particularly on sidewalks, to have that as a safer surface. So I know the standards haven't changed, but our resourcing, thanks to Chair Turney and our councillor colleagues, have provided those resources for us to start doing that higher level of service when we need to. Just a quick overview of what to expect when we are actively in a storm. How does the city work? How do we treat these conditions? What resources are deployed when we do it? So when we start having a storm, we're never caught off guard. We have resources available all the time. We are always ready. But when that storm starts, the main focus is on clearing. So it's not trying to keep everything open during the storm event. It's trying to keep paths open. So keep roads clear, keep sidewalks clear, but not doing all those fine details of all the cleanup that happens after. We're going to be deploying resources on our roads, our priority sidewalks, and our winter cycling network immediately at the start of the storm. And then as that storm goes on, we'll start deploying more resources into those other classifications and like residential sidewalks, residential streets. That could happen during the storm event depending on how long it is. But the important thing is focus on clearing the snow, keeping things open. And then when we get to the end of the storm, we begin our full cleanup. That's the important phase that we have to get through there. And then when we get into a scenario where we have snow removal, so when we look at our snow banks, when we're looking at the trigger points to do that snow removal, and it can affect sidewalks greatly, it's that encroachment into the roadway that narrows it so it's no longer safe. So that's what would trigger snow removal, not say the height of a snowbank, but the width of it and how it encroaches onto the road and sidewalks. And again, I mentioned this earlier, but we have two main methods that we use to provide safe surfaces during the winter, and that's our salt and then our grit mixture. So when we're looking at our priority road network, wherever we're trying to keep a bare surface, so priority road network, priority sidewalks, we're going to be using salt, and that's that de-icing product that that stops the bond of snow and ice to the surface, whether it's concrete sidewalk or asphalt roadway. It stops that bond, allows us to clear it off much more efficiently, and it prevents ice from forming. That being said, on a cold day like today, salt becomes a little bit less effective. So we'd have to look at, in these extreme cold temperatures, using grit, which is a crushed stone. And the main purpose of that is providing traction. So in really, really cold weather, we're going to use the grit. But if we're trying to maintain a snowpack surface, you're going to see grit used on that as well. And that's to provide that traction on the surfaces versus a de-icing component. But I will say, again, over the years with our resourcing and our funding support, we have started using more de-icing components on all forms of sidewalks, including our residential sidewalks. And the message that we provided to staff is, it's really, you have the ability to use it. Let's be aggressive. Let's try and make sure we're looking at the conditions we have now, the conditions that are coming up, and really minimize that snowpack condition on those residential sidewalks. And I've gone over this a little bit, but just the increased coverage for our sidewalks, again, that's been our priority, with great support from all levels, have allowed us to really start working, putting more resources in, analyzing where we have some priority areas. I'll use an example of the downtown in the Vanier area. We've had for years a couple of our maintenance beats that are a little bit longer than we would like to see them. This year, there was some additional funding. We've been able to put more resources into those to minimize the length on some of those beats, so we can have a faster response time. So we're constantly looking at how we can support specific areas with additional resources throughout the winter seasons. And then again, just a couple items here. So did you know, we talked about snow removal? It's about the width of the banks versus the height. If you are out and about and you see an issue where at an intersection, it's hard to see around a corner or something like that, where it can become a hazard based on sight lines, we will respond to those immediately. So that's a really good case for a call to 311 or an online service request. We will respond. That is a priority because it creates a hazardous condition. And that goes for any work around an intersection that has potential for conflict between either cyclists and pedestrians and vehicles. Another thing, just for reference, there are a lot of times where, when we are doing our maintenance, particularly in residential streets or sidewalks, where we may be pushing snow up onto, say, a corner lot, or it may look like into a front yard of a resident. We do have the ability to do that based on the right-of-way width of the roadway. So we do use some of that potential frontage on residential homes for snow storage. If there are questions about that, 311 can be contacted, and one of our team would speak to the resident about that. But it's just letting people know there are times where we may need to store snow on the public right-of-way versus somebody's front yard. Just a couple items, how residents can help us ensure that we can maintain a safe transportation network. One of my pet peeves I always harp on is garbage day. Where you place your garbage, recycling, or leaf and yard waste bags is very important. A lot of people like to put it right out on the roadway or on the sidewalk. In a winter weather event, if those bins are placed there, we cannot maintain those sidewalks and roadways to the standard we would like to see them. So we always encourage residents to make sure they put those your garbage and recycling and leaf and yard waste in an area on your driveway, back from the area of the sidewalk. Our waste collection operators are awesome. They will collect that. It just allows us to do our work much more efficiently and in a quicker manner, because if there's a whole bunch of bins out, we have to skip that area and come back later again. So then it increases the risk of a barrier for somebody using that sidewalk versus a straight connection all the way through. And then last, for our roadways, particularly residential streets, when we issue a winter weather parking ban, or even if there's an ability during a weather event for residents to move their cars and make alternate parking arrangements, that is a huge help for us. Our operators then can get through. They don't have to worry about vehicles in their way, potential conflicts with vehicles. It really just helps our operations so we can clear everything quickly. Again, trying to return that road or sidewalk network to a safe and usable format. And again, this is just really when our vehicles are out, typically our operators, whether they're doing roads or sidewalks or pathways, are working in the most challenging conditions that are out there. So whether it's freezing rain, working with ice or snow, these pieces of equipment are quite large. They are slow to react. They're built to push snow, not for a lot of maneuverability. So ensuring any users walking, cycling, or driving are giving those staff and equipment the room they need to do their work safely, it is important. I always like to say the safest place to do, whether you're driving or walking, is behind a snowplow. You know the area is cleared and treated, and it will be much safer than trying to pass or get around that piece of equipment. What if there's an issue? You've heard me talk about 311. Our colleagues at 311 are absolutely amazing. They're going to talk a little bit more about what they do and how the information you provide is used and we receive that to action those. So I won't go into detail on that. They've got a great presentation for you as well. And then that's what I have for today. Bonnie, I guess I'll stop sharing, but any questions, put them in the chat and we can go over stuff at the end there. So again, thank you everyone. Absolute pleasure to be here.
And thank you, Bryden. Always a pleasure to hear about the changes. And I do know the snowbanks have been something that we've been addressing over the last couple of years, and knowing that it's now a reportable issue, not just the snow and ice, but the banks, and then the footbridges improvement as well. So we're going to hand it over to Service Ottawa and have the community coordinators share a little bit about how to report on snow and ice. So over to you, Deanna and Delta.
Good morning. Yes, so thank you, Bonnie. My name is Dinah, and I'm a Channel Relations Coordinator with Service Ottawa. And my colleague, Delta Rubin, is also here, and she will be presenting as well. So I'm just going to get that set up. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. Great. So as I mentioned, we are Channel Relations Coordinators with Service Ottawa, and Service Ottawa manages the 311 call center and the client service centers. And today we're going to explain and just talk a little bit about how you can report issues to the city, and then specifically today with regards to winter road and sidewalk safety. So some of the issues that you might want to report to the city include sidewalks, pathways, or trails that aren't plowed or are slippery and icy, large snowbanks along the sidewalk or between the road and sidewalk, blocked catch basins or maintenance holes, and flooded roadways. So there's a couple of ways that you can make reports to 311. So of course you can always call 311. This is would be what you would use, particularly if it's like a very pressing emergency kind of immediate hazard. And after selecting the language, you can press 8 or stay on the line to speak to an agent. However, if it's not a pressing matter, and as was mentioned, if you would like to include pictures, which are very, very helpful, the best bet is to go online at ottawa.ca/311 or log into your My Service Ottawa account and submit an online service request. You'll be able to include pictures, identify exactly where the issue is on the form, and this will give more information to staff and so they can address the issue as quickly as necessary and know exactly what they're dealing with. Please note either way, you can call or do it online. The service requests are created either way with equal kind of status and importance. So this is just a little video to show how you can access the service request forms. So through ottawa.ca first, if you just go straight to our homepage, you'll see on the front page 311. And then in this instance, we are going to report or request and road and sidewalk maintenance. And then snow and ice, which is specifically of the interest today. And then from there, you can select the type of service request that best matches your issue and click on it, and it will take you to a form. My Service Ottawa, it's the same kind of concept. Once you've logged in, click on create a new service request, report or request, select the roads and sidewalk maintenance category, and then select snow and ice, and then you'll have that same list of issues, and then select the one that is best meets your issue, and then just go through and fill out the form. And the form is the same regardless of how you get to it. And that's both of those are equally easy to access. And then I'll let Delta take it from here.
Hey, thanks, Dinah. So I'll be talking a little bit about the stuff that Bryden touched on with sort of a 311 spin. So as Bryden mentioned, to address slippery or icy sidewalks and roads, the city applies salt and abrasive materials like grit on the sidewalks and the roads. The city also has sort of these do-it-yourself grit boxes that are available in areas where there's lots of pedestrians, perhaps those using mobility devices or seniors to use. And so residents are encouraged to spread grit on any slippery areas and problem areas. If ever you encounter a grit box that is empty, or if there's any issue with the grit box, you can definitely report that to the city, the same way that you would report an issue with a slippery sidewalk. So you can do that online or by calling 311. So again, Bryden touched on significant weather events. So this is when the city and staff are still out working to clear the roads and making sure that they're safe. It's just that it might take longer than usual. And so again, in those instances, we ask that residents refrain from contacting 311 either online or over the phone because staff are out there and working. It's also important to know that when the city declares a significant weather event, we'll do so through multiple different channels. So we'll inform council. We'll also update ottawa.ca/winter. We'll update our social media accounts, so Twitter and Facebook. And we'll also update the 311 IVR system. So when you call 311 and you hear that automated voice, that voice will explain that we're in the midst of a significant weather event and that you don't need to stay on the line to report any snow or ice related issues. Okay, so I'll go over some perhaps common issues that you might encounter to report to the city. So one, can you please come clear my sidewalk? And so if it is no longer snowing, feel free to report a service request online or by calling 311. If it is still snowing, we ask that residents wait until it's stopped, and then you are free to call 311 or report a request online. Unless there's an emergency or there's a hazard, please feel free to call 311. Okay, snowbanks. So when will the snowbanks be removed? And so snowbanks are removed or reduced in size when they begin to restrict sight lines, travel widths, or pedestrian, vehicular, and cycling traffic. These are planned events where the city will physically remove the snow from the side of the road and then transport them to a snow storage facility. If there are any hazards or emergency situations with regards to snowbanks, as Bryden said, please call 311. Okay, so our catch basin is blocked by ice and the road is flooded. Can the city come and clear it? So this is something that you would likely not encounter this week because it's so cold. But once it starts getting warmer, that's something that we'll often see at 311, reports of flooded roadways. And so during rainy or wet weather, staff will monitor areas that are prone to localized flooding, and they'll address water pooling to make sure that the catch basins and the ditches are taking in water as they should. Now, if ever you notice that your local catch basin is blocked, we encourage anyone who can to try to clear it of ice or any debris. But again, if there are any issues that you'd like to report to the city, you can call 311 or submit a service request online. Okay, so we've got some links and resources on this page, but we noticed that Bonnie was on top of it and has been adding links in the chat. So I guess we're near the end with the questions. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask in French, please do so, and Dinah and I can respond in French with regards to 311. Si vous avez des questions en français, s'il vous plaît, posez-les en français, et puis Dinah et moi pouvons les répondre. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delta and Dinah. Appreciate all that you've raised today. Again, it's so important to know the city is a big place, in lots of infrastructure, lots of space, but all trying to work together. And we know that much of the issues are complaint driven, but always like to share positive things as well. That precludes kind of today's programming. And yes, I have shared many of the links in the chat. The only one I haven't got is the catch basin. So if you are able, Delta or Dinah, to drop that in to the chat, that was one place I live. My driveway has a catch basement. So we are open for questions. I don't see any in the chat, but do know that if you are feeling bold and brave, you can turn on your camera and unmute yourself and ask the question. We always have at least one question. Wow. Oh, Sandra, out of the gate. Thank you.
I have a question. You've mentioned when you talk about an emergency event. Yesterday, I found the sidewalk, even though I admit it had been very well cleared and had been easy to walk on, but I started out for a walk, and when I got to the corner of Cooper and Elgin, it was sheer ice. And I carried on to where I wanted to go because I was going to the concert. But on a Sunday afternoon, if you called 311, and it was very icy. I mean, I basically had to walk like a penguin, take my time, and I requested a ride home. But is that considered an emergency, or is that still something that you wait till to report?
That's a great question, Sandra. So yeah, that definitely, you could definitely call 311. Yesterday was another example of what we would call like a flash freeze. So we had a very warm day on Saturday. We had resources in Saturday night and Sunday trying to treat those conditions, but there was a lot of ice that flash freeze caused. So I would never hesitate to make a 311 service request in that case. We would get it, we would go and check it, or we would let 311 know that we are working, and then that area is upcoming. So never,
and I guess
never a bad thing.
Part of it was because the canal is open. The Cooper and Somerset that go to the canal is full of people heading that way, getting their skates in, and I think it will continue as long as there's people the canal is open. It's a big draw on weekends.
Oh, definitely, and we're very lucky to have the canal open and in such good conditions right now. So we are aware of those. And those weekends, particularly all the way along the canal, right from City Hall down to the Glebe area there, it is a priority area. But if you see those icy conditions, Sandra, yeah, that is definitely something you can put into 311. And if we're not out working, we will be soon after you to send that in.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Good question, Sandra. We have one in the chat about the yellow grit boxes. How easy are they to access, and are there a shovel and other equipment to use? I always wondered how they were placed, chosen, the location. So I guess I'm going to add a question to that one as well.
Okay. So yellow grit boxes, right now, we've had yellow grit boxes out for many years. And they are typically strategically placed near areas where, say, there's a hill, it could be near a community center, could be near seniors buildings, but something where it would warrant residents to have a little bit of access to more material. And the idea behind the grit boxes is if someone's out using the sidewalk, like you said, if they're at the top of a hill or something, or stairs, wherever you see stairs, there'll be a yellow grit box at stairs, is for those residents to be able to grab a handful of material. It's just a small box. You would just grab a handful of material, and then you could take it with you. You could spread it as you go, or put it in a strategic area. There's no shovels. There's no pails or anything like that with them. It's just bulk material. We do monitor them and refill them as required as well.
So if a resident would like one in their neighborhood, in their community, I'm assuming they could contact their city councillor and make a request for that?
A request can be put in, or a 311 service request. That would come to us. We would review it. I will say it's not guaranteed we'll put one out, but we will review it based on that area and how our operations work in that area. So it's not guaranteed, but we will review.
Yeah. And if memory serves, Bryden, our pedestrian hotspot map was part of that planning years ago with the red zones. And I know some of those grit boxes were originally put in those areas as well.
It definitely, Bonnie, that led to some adjustments in our deployment strategy for them. So that's actually a really good example of how the work the Council of the Aging has done to help us inform some of the decisions we make for our winter maintenance.
Excellent. Good question. Glad that was asked. Anyone else have some questions?
Hello?
Oh, hi there, Malcolm.
Yes, hi. I have a question. I was just going to type a little chat box thing, but it's so slow for me to type. So I have a question. I live in the Greenboro, South Keys area, which to most parts has been pretty well maintained. You know, it's winter, you got to watch where you walk. I walk with a dog, so that's even more challenging because I want to pull you. Yeah. But my question is, and that was brought to my attention again this morning, I dropped my grandchildren off in the Glebe area. And every year I see that the Glebe side streets particularly are not necessarily, the snowbanks are never cleared away until the last minute. The road gets narrow, the sidewalks get narrow. And it just seems to be one of those places where this doesn't seem to happen around in the suburbs as much, but there, and then they turn to ice, and then they must be extremely hard to remove. So I wonder why the city doesn't remove those things before they get too big. I mean, this year the amount of snow is pretty small, but even then, they encroaches in the roadway. You can't get two cars to pass. People can't walk properly on the sidewalks. They can't walk on the street because it's too narrow. Just curious to know if that's a city strategy for some reason, or if there's an answer to that.
Oh, Malcolm, that's a very astute observation. So particularly in the Glebe area, there are many streets, most of those cross streets, that have on-street residential parking permits where cars pay to park on the street because they don't have parking spaces at their own homes. Those cars are exempt from any parking bans that we put in place. So there is typically cars parked along those streets in those parking spots all the time. So the only time we can have those cars moved and clean those areas properly is when we have snow removal operations. So we have to work that fine balance between those residents paying to park there and our winter maintenance for those areas. So any area you see that has on-street residential parking permits, you will see a higher level of snow removal required for those streets versus in the suburban areas.
Yes, I understand that, and I do notice that, but I just kind of wonder, it always seems to be that they're left until the last minute, and those things that especially if we got this cycling weather with you know, freeze thaw, that must make it quite hard to remove them. And I know that the city of Ottawa doesn't seem to employ as many snow blowers for removal as I observed in the past in places like Montreal. The techniques are different. I get that. Each city probably has its own reasons for that. But it seems to be, there seem to be few and far between these big snow throwers that can remove that stuff. I'm just wondering if the city would consider buying more. I'm sure they're grossly expensive to buy. But I don't think a plow can do it. A plow is just going to push it back up. It needs to actually be physically removed, and because it has to go somewhere. So, as I say, is that a city strategy to try and reduce the amount too of snow mountains into June and July?
No, it really falls down to our maintenance quality standards, right? So we talked about what triggers snow removal, and that's the encroachment of those snowbanks into the road. So how narrow does that road get based on the classification? And that does take into parking, the parking lane as well. So when we go to get to the point where we have to trigger removal, that's when we're going to put those signs out saying, hey, you can't park here. We're coming in, we're going to do our work. And then we're going to send in our heavy equipment. So one of the tools is that those large snow blowers that we use to actually physically pick up the snow, put it in the trucks. But the most important piece of work, equipment in that scenario is our roadway graders. So they're the ones with the 6 wheels, big blades. They're going to come in, they're going to scrape that ice down as low as we can go. And then we're going to blow it all the way to try and open up those parking lanes so we can have our road back to a much wider level. So there is a lot of strategy. And you are right, Malcolm, those are very expensive pieces of equipment that we use there. But there is a system that we use. And again, when we look at those street designs versus suburban, we have plans in place that those streets will receive more frequent snow removal than a suburban street.
Okay, thank you. If nobody else has any questions, I'd like to kind of continue a little bit, if that's all right. Not a rant.
We are just a sec, Malcolm. We are coming to the end of the program. I did see Tim kind of probably wanting to validate what was said earlier. You've definitely opened things up. And Sandra, is this related to what he was saying or something?
No, this is related to what he was saying.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want a quick question is, in Montreal, they tow the cars off the street. They literally just remove it, then put it on a side street.
Yeah.
So Ottawa started doing that.
We do that actually. So Bryden shaking his head. It's something we don't want to do. So to Malcolm's point, Malcolm, you know, we have about 800 pieces of machinery in this city that roll around. In our budgets, I've been transportation chair, oh my God, for 6 years. We've increased on a regular basis because I see snow removal as the core service. People are happier in that case. Full disclosure, my daughter actually has a business downtown and her and her husband live right on Gilmore. So trust me, they call me as well on many occasions. When are we cutting these banks back? The reality is we have about a $90 million budget and we spend half of it trucking and blowing out of downtown alone. Where we want to ensure that we see our sidewalks, obviously, as a major priority for seniors. Those are things that we want to get cleared. But to your point, we actually do schedule blocks where they put out those signs, because there is a series of bylaws we do have to adhere to put those signs out, to give proper warning to people before we send out an entire crew. So you'll see like the mass blowers, the graders, they all go in one tranche, one big team through the community, and they snake through, tow cars, as was mentioned, onto side streets or out of the neighborhood if they're parked there. So to be a part of the provincial legislation, we have to do these things in a specific order to ensure it happens correctly. But we do wait for a bit of an accumulation. We saw 3 years ago how amazing our snow team and Bryden and the entire shop back to back to back to back over Christmas, over holidays, where they were just out there blowing and towing. So we are fully aware of that. But Malcolm, we are looking at these strategies in the future, but there's a delicate balance about how far do we go on irritating everybody every second week. If we have snow dumps, we've been really blessed this year. I think it's the slipperiness is our big concern for this year so far. And that's the one I know I meet with them on a regular basis. It's I'm not just some tie-wearing counselor. I'm pretty on the ground, as Bryden can attest to. I like to get in the shop and chat with the folks. And that's where our focus is every season's a little bit different. But these discussions will, and Council on Aging is a big part of that. That was my commitment to Bonnie and to the gang is we want your voice as part of that winter quality maintenance standards. At the same time, finding that delicate balance where we don't want to jack taxes up insanely because that affects seniors as well. On another completely separate front, but we do want to pour the resources where they're needed the most. So it's not falling on deaf ears, Malcolm. And I know Bonnie's like, stop talking, politician guy.
we haven't lost anybody yet.
Okay, good. But yeah, so on that, and thanks, Malcolm. I saw you mouth it there, and I appreciate that. And I will be participating in person in all future meetings to ensure that your voice is part of the discussion, which I think has been lacking. I'll be frank with you. And if it wasn't for our amazing staff, part of those conversations, that wouldn't be taking place. And that's why Alan Hubley, which is our liaison with the city, and myself are now going to be the two reps that really work very closely with this group. I want to see more done. I think we witnessed what almost happened from a transit perspective, and thanks to Bonnie and the gang, we pulled that out of the fire, and I don't want to go down that road again in future budgets.
Well, we've definitely appreciated Bryden. We have Safer Roads Ottawa, as well as city engineering, also sitting around the table advising us, and maintaining those relationships is so important. We don't want to always make these political issues, political. We want to be able to be part of the solution on the ground, and Bryden, the involvement has definitely been a testament to that. So Malcolm, I'm going to hold the question. You can always send, and if you want to join us, there's always opportunity for us to volunteer as one of the snow moles and come on out to one of the events. I did want to just do some final comments here with the presentation and thank everyone for joining us today. So we dropped the link in the chat, our snowstorming winter walks. Come on out on our snow mole patrol on February 4th, March 4th, and April 1. The snow mole email account comes to me, so by all means, if you want to stay up to date on the events coming, do sign up for our newsletter. You can follow us on Facebook, and we'll be having our little snow mole, Spot the Mole, during our walking audits, and we will be telling a story over on Facebook. You can become a member and support the work and volunteer with us. Definitely know working with the small group of volunteers and advisors is so important to the work that we do. And we do have a lot of cross-cutting issues: Francophone affairs, transportation, income security, housing, and health. So you can come out and volunteer on any one of those. And then finally, you can always make a donation and amplify the voices of older adults and truly advance the well-being of Ottawa older adults. We also offer our Smart Aging program, so helping you prepare for late life transition, so both an individual and community aging perspective. And on that note, thank you very much for everyone for joining. And I'll give you the last word, Bryden. My family will be very impressed.
No, Bonnie, I just wanted to say if there's anybody, Malcolm, I know you may have had another question, put it in the chat there, and then Bonnie will let me know. But if anybody has questions, just put it in there or reach out to Bonnie. They know how to get a hold of me. So awesome. Awesome work again, Bonnie. I always look forward to this. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone.
Right.
Have a good day, everyone.
Goodbye, thanks.